You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I am your host, Lucky Robert Curtis. Joining us to dissect and examine all of the action on UFC on FuelTV 7, Renan Barao versus Michale McDonald. I welcome back to the show, English Tom Burton.
Who better to do it with?
Hello, hello. This event was set in lovely, sunny, crisp, clear, wonderful, pollution-free London, England. For those people that don't know why I say England, it's from Austin Powers, the first one. London, England.
Never heard.
You've never seen the movie?
Yeah, I don't remember it as much as the other two.
Citizenship test. All right. One of the American generals says he's in London, England. There are a couple things I do want to talk about first. First off, our friends at MMAshare.com, whom we get a lot of our great insights and steal a lot of great content, they're having a Hall of Fame contest. Basically, awesome members, sometimes even guys that are just plain sexy, have been nominated to go into the MMA Share Hall of Fame, which, quite frankly, is as prestigious of an award in mixed martial arts as has ever been known. It is, in fact, slightly above the WAMA Championship belt. Now, I nominated my dear buddy, English Tom.
I didn't get on the final list, though.
No, you didn't. And you didn't nominate me back, which is what I kind of thought was. But whatever, that's cool. And you could nominate 5 people. Apparently I was 6th, at least, at most. But I did make it onto the final list.
Don't vote for him.
So all of our listeners, this is your chance to flex your democratic muscle and vote for the only guy named Lucky in your life. Vote for me, and if you do, I promise I will sacrifice a live chicken on our next show. I think I've just guaranteed to finish dead last in that. All right. So, Hall of Fame. Better luck next time, Tommy.
Not as much as a CRI, I think, though.
Whatever. You get into the Hall of Fame, you get that cool little Hall of Fame thing right under your avatar.
Yeah, the same thing as the Coach Rich Invitational winner. Booyah.
But I think Hall of Fame sounds cooler. Anyway, speaking of our avatars and little things you can put on MMA Share, let's just diverge for a little second. When you become a new member on MMA Share, which is a community of mixed martial arts fans, highly recommend it. That's where I met Tom. That's where I met Mitchell. You start off, I believe, as a featherweight champion, and then as you get more posts, you make your way all the way to heavyweight. What do you start at?
I think it's bantamweight, actually.
You think it's bantamweight? So now, should they start at flyweight, or should we start them at women's? What is it, bantamweight?
I don't know. I think I might take offense to that.
Well, they're noobs. Time to pay your dues. Or maybe, because women are so beautiful and wonderful and we worship them like the goddesses they are, maybe we should all be aspiring to be female bantamweights, and that's what you get once you hit 5,000 posts or something. If that's the case, what does that make Sasori and Pride? Super heavy females?
Post whores.
Well, that goes without saying. And we say that with love. Let's get to the event. Wembley, what do you think overall of the card before we get into individual fights?
Well, Wembley... It's a very small arena, and I don't know if you noticed it, but it's much smaller than the O2 Arena, which is our main arena, which go-to arena for these kind of events. But it sold pretty well. It sold out, and I think they did their best ever ticket sales in that arena, so it was pretty good on the UFC's part.
I have a confession. When I heard that it was in Wembley Arena, I thought it was in Wembley Stadium.
No.
And then when I watched the event, I'm like, what? This is tiny! I thought, like, this is where they played the FA Cup final. I was a little bit embarrassed and a lot confused.
No.
I thought, man, they're going out like gangsters selling out Wembley Stadium. Next it'll be Old Trafford. See, I know some stuff.
Yeah, that you do.
Thank you. So, What do you think of the card? It did sell out, and you're right. Dana said that that's the most gate that Wembley Arena has ever done. What do you think of the fights, just from a general view?
Well, on paper before, it looked pretty promising. But after watching it, I mean, there were a lot of decisions, and there were only two TKO wins. One, if you don't count the injury, and one submission. So it wasn't that great compared to past UFC events in England.
Surprisingly, 5 decisions on the prelims, but the one that didn't was actually rather marvelous.
Yeah.
Do you think that the English fighters, the British fighters, represented themselves admirably on this card?
Well, one of them. Well, there are fighters that I want to get to into more detail when we come up to them, but I think we have seen fighters that have shown a really well-rounded base, well-rounded grappling. You know, they've got the wrestling defense, but there are other fighters on there that just looked, you know, that they can't compete at the level that you need at the UFC.
Yeah, I will say that for the overall card, I do think the English fighters were exciting. Now, obviously, like you said, there obviously are some fighters, and this is the English tradition, that have serious gaps in their game. But we'll get to that, particularly with the first fight on the main card. Let's go very quickly through the prelims. There's one fight in particular that we should talk about. We're going to try and do the entire event just on one show, 30, 40 minutes. The first fight, Phil Harris, unanimous decision over Ulysses Gomez. I made a mistake, as I'm prone to do. In the preview show, I said Ulysses Gomez was the guy that lost to John Moraga. But in reality, it was Chris Carriazo that lost to John Moraga, and Chris Carriazo beat Ulysses Gomez. So I hacked out one fighter and stuck Ulysses Gomez on his head. Any thoughts on that fight?
It is what it is. It was pretty. It wasn't too spectacular, but it was an all right fight to get you started, though.
Bantamweight fight came up next. Vaughan Lee defeating via unanimous decision Montanabu Tezuka.
Vaughan Lee has shown that he's pretty much the guy that can only seem to get wins over Japanese fighters and struggles with everyone else.
Think he's got that thing for Asians?
Possibly.
I do. My wife's Vietnamese. The next fight is the one we should spend a little bit of time on, and that's the middleweight fight between Tom Watson, who is not Tom Waits, i.e. the devil from The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, and all-around badass, defeating Stanislav Nedkov, nicknamed Stucky. He won via TKO with about 1,000 knees to the midsection.
Yeah.
This was a great fight.
I
This
agree.
fight really made, I think, the prelims watchable.
I agree completely. What I loved about this fight, it was everywhere, wasn't it? It was standing, in the clinch, on the cage wall, on the ground. It was everywhere.
And it was really back and forth. If you flipped back every minute or so, you'd be like, wow, Stanislav's going to win the fight. Wow, Tom Watson's winning this fight. Whoa, there goes Stucky.
I agree. It was really great to watch as well, because I am a fan of Tom Watson, and he is also my local fighter, born and bred in Southampton, England. One critique that I have of him is he has a pretty poor wrestling background. It's pretty much non-existent. And on the ground itself, he's like a fish out of water. The thing that I hate, though, is the place where he trains. He trains at Greg Jackson in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and at TriStar. Where the fuck has he been doing there for the past, 4 years? And he's telling me he hasn't even picked up a single, sprawl or a decent fucking sweep to get off the ground? No. He looks like every other English fighter that's getting grappled to death.
One thing really interesting about this fight is what Tom Watson said after the fight in the post-fight interview, as well as the presser. And he raged on TRT people, and he even implied that Stanislav Nedkov is a TRT guy because of the way he looks. And he said, I don't have TRT, but you can't inject that into your heart or your chin. If you want to take that and be a cheater, come fight me. Wow. I've looked, and I haven't seen anything about Stanislav Nedkov being a TRT suspect or ever being approved for it or anything. But obviously, physically, he looks bestial. Not to mention, Stanislav normally fights at light heavyweight, so he's even bigger at this division. What do you think about that? What do you think about his comments? How timely are they for our last cage chat?
It is pretty timely, and not only that, Dana White said that he's not taking this TRT shit anymore. And I think Tom Watson is kind of... He wants... It seems to be English fighters as well, because Michael Bisping's not a fan either.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to look at the vices between sports, obviously Japanese are Reuters, Americans, Reuters, apparently Brazilians, Reuters, English, probably a little bit too much of a booze.
Yeah.
Dana White said specifically that he believes that people that are on TRT largely are cheating, because what they're doing is, because they can come in and do a pre-fight drug test, and they can show up for synthetic testosterone, and that's okay, just so long as their level is okay. So that means they can abuse it through 3 months of training camp and then cycle down just below the limit. And I think that's clear. That's what Vitor did against Bisping, because physically he looked absolutely different. And if Overeem was smart, that's exactly what he would do, and then he could get back up to his freakishly massive, gargantuan looks. But what Dana said is that he says, if you're on TRT, we are going to test you throughout your camp and make sure your testosterone levels never go above the limit, which is a good move.
Yeah.
At least that's something.
That way you can't abuse it, and I think... And we're probably going to see a huge drop in actual TRT subscribers, so the guys that actually need it are on the stuff.
Well, the other thing that Dana White said, to your point, is he said if your testosterone levels aren't high enough because you're old, maybe you shouldn't be fighting. You know?
Yeah.
Like, is it... like, for instance, let's say that I don't have hand speed that's as good as an average UFC fighter. Should that allow me to get bionic $6 million man type injections into my tendons and ligaments and fast twitch muscles so that I can be on the same... No, that's just the athletic difference that determines whether or not you're good at the sport or not.
Yeah.
At some point, you can't say, well, my body is just getting old and doesn't want to produce all this testosterone and muscle mass anymore. I should probably go to commentary or owning a gym. But that's neither here nor there. No. Well done, Tom Watson. He got fight of the night and knockout of the night, which was largely finished. Stanislav just allowed himself to stay in the clinch the whole time. He just ate knees to the stomach and sternum.
Yeah, I think you're kind of underrating his clinch there, because it was perfect in my opinion. It was the clinch, the Muay Thai plum is a very underrated use. Not just for knees, but you can use it to actually grapple your opponent and control him. And Tom just used it on the cage, and he picked his shots. He didn't go all out just on knees. He used elbows, he used knees to the body, and knees to the head.
Yeah, and the reason I'm saying that Nedkov surrendered it is because he resisted, he fought to keep it from happening. And then once he had it, all he seemed to want to do was cover up his chest. Yeah. He didn't try to spin on the cage or break the hold or anything. Once Tom Watson got the clinch or the plum, it seemed like Nedkov was like, all right, I'll just hang out here and just try to protect my stomach. Next fight, featherweight Andy Ogle versus Josh Grisby. There was a little bit of controversy in the scoring of this. One guy actually gave the first round. Two judges actually gave the first round to Grisby. And that was because Ogle spent essentially the entire round in a failed triangle.
Yeah.
But while he was in that triangle,
he was punching the shit out of him.
Yeah, and Dana was like, I don't understand how people can score that for Grisby, because he hung on to a failed triangle the whole round and just ate 30 unanswered punches. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think you should score points if you're going for submissions, but that's only if the opponent isn't doing anything while in the submission. If he's punching the shit out of you, then clearly that guy's scoring over the one that's actually trying to go for this failed submission.
Yeah, I agree. Like, you should score when you attempt a submission or when you get a takedown. But if it takes you 5 minutes to do a takedown, you shouldn't get 5 minutes worth of points for one takedown. That's silly. Let me just take a look at the significant strikes in round 1. According to this fight metric, wow, there weren't really much here. Ogle landed 42 total strikes. Grisby landed 4. But if you look at significant strikes, Ogle landed 3, Grisby landed 1. But that 42 to 4, I think that's fairly indicative. Ogle should have won all 3 rounds.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you can't not give it to Ogle, in my opinion. I think, even though they weren't, power punches, it was accumulative damage.
He was scoring,
yeah,
like you said. Next 2 fights are both lightweight. Danny Castillo defeating Paul Sass via decision. Any thoughts on that one?
This kind of exposes Paul Sass, in my opinion, because there's only 2 moves he goes for when he's on the ground on his back, and that's either a heel hook or a triangle. And all you need to do is learn how to defend them and make sure you know the right defenses for them. The one thing that Paul Sass could have done is he could have used the heel hook to use it to escape from the bottom, but I think he was too caught up in trying to submit Danny Castillo, because after round 1 it was pretty obvious Paul Sass wasn't going to get it, so he should have tried to get the stand up from the heel hook.
Yeah, kind of like a leg whizzer or something.
Yeah, because he didn't look too bad on the feet. I think he was beating Danny Castillo on the feet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think Paul Sass is the English Cody McKenzie? But if you think he was winning on the feet, then that answer is a definitive no.
No.
Next fight, lightweight, Rene Forte defeating Terry Etim by, you guessed it, unanimous decision.
And guess what?
Thoughts?
This guy now has a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, if that's right. You win in the UFC, you get a Wikipedia page. It's one of the little bonuses.
He probably put it up just before the fight as well, just so that theory wouldn't come into play.
Yeah, he's a listener to the show, as all UFC fighters clearly are. And he said, you know what? They're right. I got to get a Wikipedia page. Get my PR people on that. Main card, welterweight Matthew Riddle out-wrestles Che Mills in a egregious split decision. Matthew Riddle, and I'm not a huge fan, but I don't dislike the kid. He kind of looks like an extra on some really bad teen drama, or maybe like if they reboot Melrose Place, he'll be one of the evil characters. Like, that's the evil handsome guy.
Yeah, he's like the stoner friend who's like, yeah.
But he kind of does. He's like the stoner metrosexual that does the duck lips in his pictures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I believe he actually has a mushroom tattooed on his ribcage. A mushroom. He out-wrestled Che Mills for 3 rounds. He should have won unanimously.
Yeah. It was pretty boring. It was a pretty boring fight, and that's only because of Che Mills' just poor ability in wrestling. He's mostly been training in England, and it's kind of... He needs to kind of listen to our advice here and go to the fucking United States and learn how to wrestle.
Yeah, he does. Here are 2 things that English guys need to do. 1, they need to learn takedown defense. 2, they need to learn how to score while being walled. You know, wall and stall. You have to be able to score while that's happening. And Che Mills basically just held on and neutralized Riddle, but then gassed himself in the process. If he's not scoring in that instance, he's losing.
Yeah. I think he has shown that he has some kind of sprawl. He just didn't know how to get out of the grappling stage, because Matthew Riddle was just tying him up, and he just couldn't get out of it. I think he actually got on the sprawl position as well on top, but because there's no knees to the head of the grounded opponent, he can't do anything, and it's more disadvantageous to be on top, so he has to actually learn how to get out of the tangle.
I I was actually fairly impressed with Riddle. I liked his game plan, and I liked the fact that he went away from the crazy brawling.
Yeah.
Although he did bring it back for the third round, like a little victory lap. Light heavyweight James Te-Huna. Here come the men in black, defeating Ryan Jimmo. What did you think of his ring entrance?
Probably the greatest ring entrance ever in UFC.
All I could think about was Dana White facepalming, because he hates
Oh,
that
yeah. Who cares what Dana thinks? The crowd likes
true.
it.
The other thing that I was thinking was, man, it's going to take him a long time to get out of that suit at the Harley-Davidson prep point. Am I a nerd?
I don't know. I don't think they showed it when I was watching live, but I saw like a bit of the YouTube video.
Yeah. They all of the intros they air during the commercial, unless you're like in Australia. They just they hardly have any commercials, and they just show you the whole thing. Even like there's silence and people talking, production crews talking over the sound. If you were to come out and do a dance number before your MMA fight, what would you do?
Gangnam Style.
Oh Lord.
Because I'm that pathetic.
I would do that, except I'd be worried about gassing myself with my cardio.
Oh,
Maybe
God.
Like a virgin, come out in a wedding dress and roll around on the ground, touching myself. Would that be weird? I guarantee you the other guy would be freaked out.
Yeah, that would freak out your opponent.
James Te-Huna, and you called this. I have to give you a tip of the hat.
Yeah.
You said that he's got a crazy Maori chin, which is much in the same fashion of his Maori kin,
Mark
Hunt.
Hunt.
He actually ducked into a high kick and got himself almost knocked out, not only once with the high kick, but also on the ground. He ate probably 2 really clean shots in that flurry. But even by the end of round 1, it looked like he was totally fine, and then he came back and took rounds 2 and 3. Do you think round 1 should have been a 10-8 for Ryan Jimmo?
I'm just trying to remember. I don't think Ryan Jimmo probably took the whole round, because I think James Te-Huna just did enough to get the 10-9. 10-8, I'd probably say. Because I wouldn't give a 10-8 for every single knockdown. I'd probably give a 10-8 if it was a knockdown and then domination for the whole round.
If the round had ended after 3 minutes, I would have given it a 10-8.
Yeah.
But like I said, Te-Huna really looked like he kind of positionally was back in control. Maybe I would give it like a 10-8-5. Yeah, does that? I mean, if we could go fractional, because I really think the first 3 minutes were pretty one-sided.
Yeah.
I have to admit, this next fight I'm super excited about talking about. Welterweight Gunnar Nelson. He looks to me like one of the 3 Musketeers with his little facial hair, like Aramis or something.
Yeah.
He defeated Jorge Santiago by unanimous decision. Now, again, another unanimous decision, but this was actually really, I think this was, you could see something here in Gunnar Nelson. Icelandic Rajkovic, I know I didn't say that right, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master, karate background, undefeated, 11 with 1 draw. This guy, I think, has a pretty bright future.
I agree. I'm just worried about his size because he's so skinny. Jorge Santiago looked like he was on steroids or something, because he looked like a fully out-buffed bodybuilder compared to Gunnar Nelson.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Gunny should drop down to lightweight?
Yeah, I think Gunny should drop down to lightweight, because those bigger, tougher guys in the top 10 division of welterweight are just going to throw him around.
He's 24. At 24, that's pretty amazing what he was doing. The only thing I would say is he seemed a little bit, particularly towards the end of the fight, he seemed a little bit lackadaisical with his striking defense. His hands were a bit low. He was very composed, which was in his favor in rounds 1 and 2. But when he got a little bit gassed, he didn't have any head movement, and he ate a couple punches he shouldn't have. And, at the end when Florian's like, he's got a chin! I'm like, well, you shouldn't have tested that chin because you were way ahead in the fight.
Yeah, that's a karate thing, though, because they generally prefer to keep their hands down and use hand traps to set up counter punches.
Yeah, apparently it's a karate thing to also eat punches right on your teeth. I do like his style, though, and on the ground, Santiago was a black belt, but Nelson was in another class, which is crazy to think an Icelandic guy is out Brazilian Jiu-Jitsuing the Brazilian guy.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful world of mixed martial arts. Do you think Gunnar Nelson will be champion at the weight class you're choosing?
What? If I was to say lightweight?
Sure.
Lightweight. Could he? No, I think he could only make lightweight.
The tricky thing between welterweight and lightweight, it's a 15-pound difference.
Yeah.
That makes it tough.
And it's the competition as well. The level of competition is kind of the same.
Yeah, they're both the deepest divisions.
Yeah.
The best two.
Ooh. I don't know if he has it to be champion. It's too early. But maybe later on in his career, because he's only 24, isn't he? 20. Yeah. 24. He could do it.
Here's what happens to happen with Gunnar. I think he needs to put on some mass. He needs to stack some muscle on that frame for power. And from 24 to 28, he's got to take a pretty big leap. The same leap that he has taken to get to where he's at 24. You know? Because he's probably one of the best 24-year-olds that has competed in the UFC. Like, if you take him and compare him to GSP at 24, they're probably fairly similar. But GSP continued that same trajectory of advancement, improvement, and greatness. If Gunnar can stay on that trajectory, I think he's got a great shot of being a contender, a perennial contender, if not champion. If he, like so many other guys, if he flatlines, kind of like how Tito did, then, or maybe even a Frank Shamrock, then I think the welterweight division is way too deep.
Yeah, I agree.
We were pretty disappointed at this next light heavyweight fight, Jimmy Manuwa versus Cyril Diabate. The winner by TKO was Diabate's calf. He couldn't come out. He couldn't get off the stool, and of course, in the true show of French courage, decided, no, I cannot continue.
No, this is his second opponent in a row for Manuwa. He's injured. I think this guy likes injuring people.
Well, how do you injure someone's calf?
Well, it happened in the takedown, apparently, when Jimmy Manuwa picked up Diabate and threw him to the ground, and I think Diabate just landed awkwardly on it.
Like, okay, so in terms of muscle strength or muscle durability, the calf is like a leather belt. I mean, it doesn't particularly. And I was thinking, actually, I watched this fight on a recording after it actually happened, and I knew what happened. So I was watching Diabate's calves the whole time, and I was thinking, wow, it's like he doesn't even have a calf muscle. It's just like it's one long shin bone. So maybe that's why he got injured, because he's got the smallest calves. He reminds me of that other UFC fighter that checked a leg kick and his calf snapped in half.
Oh.
Like Mr. Toothpick. Despite that,
yeah,
I think this fight was actually a lot closer than maybe you thought, because I thought Diabate was actually landing those really long knees, and I don't think Manuwa liked it.
They were like 3 knees, though, and every time he threw them, Manuwa just threw him to the ground. He wasn't continuously eating them. He was probably eating 2 at a time. And then he took him to the ground, and I think he was able to recover. In my opinion, I think Jimmy Manuwa had the fight anyway.
I have to admit, I do like how he had Diabate stalled up against the cage, and he just had his little hand there tapping the leg, and then as soon as Diabate threw that knee on that side, scooped it up, takedown.
Yeah.
That was a Rampage.
Yeah, he actually trained with Rampage, I believe.
Yeah. Yep, that's what he said. That was specifically what he stated he got from Rampage, and that's exactly what Rampage did to Ryan Bader, I believe. So, unfortunately, what should have been 2 of the greatest fights for TKO of the night, Manuwa and Diabate and Te-Huna and Jimmo, only one of them really lived up to their billing. This one, because of the calf injury, was just really, really disappointing. The next 2 fights, though, the co-main event and the main event, were actually pretty brilliant. Cub Swanson vastly overwhelmed Dustin Poirier. Poirier, to me, in this fight, showed he's still a young fighter. What do you think?
I would say the same for Cub as well. because Cub has just shown that he's improving with age.
Yeah, and I think he surprised Poirier by the way he was just swinging for the fences. Even though most of them didn't land, I think Poirier got put on his back foot.
Yeah, he was able to set up a really good pace for someone that old as well.
Yeah, and then rounds 1 and 2, he won on the feet. And Poirier, I thought, looked terrible in this fight. I wonder if he had a bad camp or he had an injury. He looked stiff. He didn't look dynamic. He was way slower. Like, Cub Swanson's throwing power shots, and he was faster than Poirier's straights and jabs. But in round 3, this is what really surprised me. Cub decided he wanted to wrestle, and he out-wrestled Poirier there too.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cub has just shown that I think he's probably ready for probably another title run at featherweight.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him fight
so.
the Korean Zombie. I think that would be a great fight.
I agree, but I kind of feel like the Korean Zombie has earned his title shot.
Yeah, I agree as well, but I don't think he's getting it right now.
That's true. Which is a shame, because I feel that KZ should be next for Aldo. But if he doesn't get Aldo, give him Cub. I think that'd be a great fight.
Did you see the UFC rankings? I think they ranked Korean Zombie 4th or something. Or 3rd.
How often do they update him? Because me and Mitchell went over them. They didn't even have Chael Sonnen in the rankings anywhere.
I'm surprised at that, because I thought they would have just witched him straight to number 2 just to give him some legitimacy.
Well, normally what they do is they keep the guy in their division until they fight in a new division. Like, they still had Frankie Edgar as a lightweight. But they didn't have Chael anywhere. That was just a complete oversight. Like, maybe all of the sports writers were just completely forgot about good old Chael. The next fight, the last fight, Renan Barao versus Michale McDonald. Michale McDonald won via a arm triangle choke or a side choke.
You mean Renan Barao won?
What did I say?
You said Michale McDonald won.
I mean, he won the hearts of the fans.
All right.
No, you're right. You're right. Renan Barao, the interim champ.
I see that as well. Don't worry about that mistake.
I see intercontinental champ. Clearly, my youth was spent watching WWF. I've always thought Renan Barao was an elite fighter, but this actually made me reconsider some things, because his kicks are brilliant, but his punching, I think, looks wild. And and when he got dropped in round 1, it was he has a tendency to sort of go berserker flurry, and McDonald caught him. I don't think Renan Barao. I thought this before, but I don't think Renan Barao is on Aldo's level.
No, I don't think he's on that level of dominating champion that you get with guys like Benson Henderson, John Jones, GSP. He's just this guy that seems to be holding the belt at this time in the UFC. And Michale McDonald, he's an elite fighter as well in this division. And generally, I think bantamweight can be a really good division, because we don't have this dominant champion. We were going to be a bit unsure of who's going to hold the belt for the next 4 years.
Well, I'll tell you this. I was thinking Dominic Cruz would lose this belt when he came back from injury, granted, if he's fully healthy. I think his style will be a perfect counter to Barao. After what I saw from McDonald, Dominic Cruz is extremely elusive. He's a very efficient puncher. He's got a wrestling base, so he's not easy to take down. He can counter the submissions. And I think his striking is a lot cleaner, more technical, and on point. And I think that will be the kryptonite for Barao, to be honest.
Yeah,
if he's healthy.
I can see that. I am probably going to go for Renan Barao, but only because Dominic Cruz has been out for so long, and he's had a terrible string of injuries as well.
That's true.
Dominic Cruz will win the rematch, though, and it will probably happen.
I mean, you just don't know with those types of injuries if Dominic Cruz will be the same fighter ever. And it's the same question GSP had. GSP answered it resoundingly, yes, I am the same fighter. Will Dominic Cruz still be able to do the same thing? If he fought Renan Barao before he got injured, I think he wins.
We have been pretty negative on Renan Barao. Let's say something positive. I have to say, He's Brazilian.
He's got a very nice smile.
He's Brazilian, and he has very fucking good wrestling.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Good point. Him and Aldo, out of all of the Brazilians, have really good wrestling. I think not just their takedown defense, but they actually have a nice shoot. I really thought that's exactly what stood out to me. I'm like, wow, these freaking Brazilians look like they're in the Big 12 tournament or something for wrestling coming up very soon. I believe first week of March. OSU still undefeated. Woo woo. But you're right. No, Renan Barao definitely has good wrestling. Well, at least compared to Mike McDonald.
Yeah, it's just the Nueva União thing that they have going on there.
Yeah, good on them. Do you think Michael McDonald will be champ ever?
I don't know. Bantamweight's crazy right now. How old is Michael McDonald?
He's 22.
22.
He's a baby.
Oh, he has a chance of getting a rematch for sure, in my opinion. I think he could take it. Could take the title maybe in his career.
The thing that's really exciting about McDonald is, as a bantamweight, he's got great power. 15 wins, 9 of them are by knockout. So even if he never technically turns the corner, he's like a guy like Johnny Hendricks. If he puts his leather on you, he could win.
Yeah.
I mean, he almost beat Barao with that flash knockdown, I think in the first, dropped him to both knees. But with that being said, at 22, I think McDonald will gain muscle maturity. I don't think you hit your physical peak until like 27, 28. He still has a lot of skills that he's going to add to that arsenal. I think he can definitely be champion. He'll probably be the next generation of champion after Barao and Dominic have their sort of back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good assessment.
But I still think this was probably a bit early for McDonald. You know, like his last fight was against Miguel Torres. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With Jones, they really brought him along slowly, and he became a super young champion. McDonald, maybe it's because his bantamweight isn't as deep or doesn't have any names. It's probably 1 or 2 fights too early.
Yeah, they needed a name to give to Barao.
That's true, particularly if they're going to headline the card with it. McDonald did say, when asked if he thought it was too early, he says no, because I wouldn't know what I don't know unless I did it. Now I know where I'm weak. Now I know what a championship fight feels like, and I think that's going to be invaluable for him.
So I
kind of like Michael McDonald.
Yeah. So we could say this is Michael McDonald's GSP Hughes 1.
Yeah. Good point. That's a good analogy. Or a Anderson Silva Road Shonen? No?
That was a fluke victory.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely no bearing on this whatsoever.
Can I just talk about a potential matchup that's probably going to happen with 2 of these opponents on this card?
Sure.
So after the card, and we had the the post-fight press conference, I know
where you're going with this.
A lot of the media were very keen on seeing Jimmy Manuwa versus James Te-Huna and having a Ultimate Fighter Ashes Season 2. Smashes, I mean.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
It kind of breaks my heart because James Te-Huna is a Kiwi. He is not Australian. They sound very similar. In fact, I've lived in this country for 8 years and I still can't tell the difference in the accents. Can you?
Well, Jimmy Manuwa was born in Nigeria, so it's kind of like foreign.
Yeah, it's Tough Smashes, the imperialistic version,
yeah.
By a proxy. I do think, though, that's a great fight, Jimmy versus Te-Huna, in terms of these two guys just coming out to kill each other. What I worry is that the show... I mean, you had this with Season 1. The show will lose some of its luster because neither of these fighters are very prominent. I think, to be honest, George Soteropoulos and Ross Pearson had more name value than these guys do.
Yeah.
Of course, being that they're big boys, light heavyweights covered with muscle will help in the promos. But, you know, if I'm a new fighter and I'm talking to James Te-Huna, I'm going to be like, man, you're like one lucky break further than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, George Todoropoulos was on like a 7-fight winning streak in the UFC. You know, like he actually was going somewhere until he just completely fell off the ledge.
Yeah.
But no, I do agree. That's probably the most compelling matchup, unless they can get Mark Hunt to. I mean, he's another Kiwi, but if they can get Mark Hunt on the show against some English heavyweight, let's do that. Let's get Mark Hunt on the show.
Oh, we don't have any good heavyweights to put against Mark Hunt.
Who cares? I want to see Mark Hunt on the show.
He is pretty funny.
He'll look like a grumpy old man on there, and I guarantee you he will kill somebody. He'll pop somebody's head off like a zit.
No.
There's got to be some.
I think Mark Hunt's a pretty funny dude. I think he's got a really cool attitude, and he'll probably bring in the ratings. Because I remember
he will, but I'm telling you, if he has to deal with somebody like trying to get under his skin for like 8 weeks, I think he'll lose it. There's got to be some English heavyweight.
Philip to freeze, but that'll just be like a 10-second KO.
Mark it down. Next year, next season, Smashers 3, we'll do you guys a favor and we'll put Parash in there. You pick who you want to fight. All right, well, that is the entirety of the UFC on FuelTV 7 card. I'd give it like a C+, with some A+ fights in there, but a lot of sort of grind them out, not compelling matches. We do have an announcement regarding the show, and that is that our dear buddy English Thom is retiring from full-time co-hosting duties. He will come back on the show and make guest appearances, and special analysis on Dan Hardy and other greats from England. But this is officially his final show as a co-host.
You just don't want to pay me.
Yeah, that's it. Ask Mitchell how much I pay him. That's right. At least because you've got socialized medicine, I can say you've got great dental. Mitchell's on his own completely. Any final thoughts to all the listeners and all of the Thom supporters out there?
Come on, bug Robert on Twitter and get me back on the show. Just flood his inbox. Flood his inbox if you want me back.
And a vote for Robert Curtis, Lucky Rob, on MMA Share Hall of Fame is a vote for Thom. What'd I say? Well, thank you, Thom. It's been an absolute delight and pleasure. We're going to have you back, I believe, on the GSP Nick Diaz fight.
Yeah, we can't have two haters on that card. Can't have two Nick Diaz haters.
Yes, so he'll join us, Mitchell and I, to talk about that. I think there's also a Dan Hardy fight coming up, maybe even the Gegard Mousasi fight. But again, on behalf of the podcast, Thom, it's been a real pleasure.
It's been a real pleasure being with you, Rob, and all you guys who've been listening.
On that note, as I wipe a tear from my eye, I say cheerio, and we'll be back later this week to talk about Ronda Rousey.